There's been a lot of talk of ayahuasca as of late, and what we've done is we've reached out to a good friend, Ron, who's going to tell us a bit about his journey in ayahuasca, but we're going to do something a bit different. We're going to do a before and after. So what we're going to do right now is talk about the before of the experience, and we will ask Ron, what are you trying to accomplish with this journey?
Well, it's mostly a journey of self-exploration. I would say that ayahuasca is an opportunity to spend a night very intimately with yourself in a room full of strangers doing the same thing, which adds an interesting contrast.
So you kind of brought up the fact that this is not something that you're planning on doing by yourself. This is a group experience.
Usually, people deviate from the traditions of it and try all sorts of things. But generally speaking, ayahuasca, you won't be alone.
When you're looking at this journey, first of all, what brought up the fact that you wanted to undertake this transition or journey?
Well, I think as a part of just learning and growing spiritually, well, if I can use the word spiritually, exploring myself, a lot of meditating, a lot of reading, just got to the point where I wanted to actually experience it more, kind of move it ahead faster. So my options were move to Tibet and join an ashram, or it just kept coming up on the radar. I really think ayahuasca is the kind of thing that when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and it just gets onto your radar and keeps coming back and keeps growing in appeal, and one day you just find that, you're considering it.
Now, you've come across it a lot recently. Have you seen an upswing in discussions around it?
It always seems like that when we get into things and we try new stuff. I call it the blue car syndrome. If you're going to the dealership next week to buy a blue BMW, suddenly it will seem like every third car on the road is a new blue BMW. It's the way energy, the universe kind of works. Anything you're getting closer towards will seem to coalesce or come into your experience more and more. And that is one of the signs, I would say, that ayahuasca, it's time, it's an answer for what you're looking for what you're asking. If it's a root, it will start presenting itself to you. It's kind of interesting that the exact shaman that my partner Julie was getting excited about and decided if we went to Peru for this experience, this would be a wonderful shaman with his center to experience it at. And lo and behold, his center is sending shaman up to our area. It came to us. And those kinds of coincidences happen a lot. And they're the little signs that, you're on the right path, you're heading in the right direction.
So really, it was a culmination of all of these little trigger points that basically said, hey, this is something I want to try for the first time.
I didn't have to kill anybody, sell the house, immigrate to another country, get a false ID. Yeah, it got really easy. It kind of just fell in my lap. So when everything falls into place like that and it's a solution to questions you're asking, if you're going to say no to all the solutions the universe offers you to your questions, you're just going to have to live with the question.
Mm-hmm. For someone that's never undertaken a psychedelic journey, are you a bit nervous about it?
I have done ayahuasca once.
Shock!
And I was very, very nervous about it. And it's the kind of experience that you're always nervous about. Because yes, you're in a room full of strangers, getting very intimate and a little out of control of yourself. A little helpless might be a better word. B, there's physical side effects. It's very nauseating. I'm not looking forward to that. You live through that, but it's still kind of something you don't look forward to, which is a good point about abusing this substance. I really don't think there's a big market for a big risk of this becoming a habitual substance for anyone, because honestly, while it's a very mind-opening, expanding spiritual experience, it's not something you're going to do to relax after work.
Mm-hmm. It's not something like, let's say, marijuana or something along that lines.
I wouldn't really know. It's not anything like what most people use marijuana for.
Mm-hmm. When we think about these, because the reason I brought that up is a lot of people are concerned that ayahuasca may be a gateway drug to other more powerful, whether or not it's heroin, LSD, or anything like that. Your thoughts on that aspect? Is it a gateway drug?
I'm not saying that someone who isn't open to drugs and abusing substances wouldn't try ayahuasca for the contrast, because I've seen that. But I would say it's the other way around. I think people that were looking for stuff with other drugs might go to ayahuasca to actually get some questions answered, to have a more meaningful experience, life-altering experience, other than just getting high or blotting out reality for a while and then having to go back to it on Monday. My life changed after the first try. I mean, you can read and meditate and think about and picture a lot of things, but with ayahuasca, you're spending a night in your dream realm, in a very special dream realm. Some people get guides and assistances, some people see visions, and some people just, myself, spent a night alone, like being able to actually work with your own thoughts. Nothing was fleeting, nothing skittered away, nothing was flashing at you. It's just like the entire situation of your life in the universe, and you get to sift through it and pick away at it and analyze it till the point where you wish it was over and you could wake up, because you have so much information to work with. You're like, I don't want to forget this, let's just wake up now. But generally speaking, ayahuasca lasts a few hours to the whole night, and some mild effects. You are in the zone for a few days afterwards, usually.
Mm-hmm. So there is definitely a residual effect to it.
And that's kind of why I wanted to do this before and after, because this is me, who I am now, today. Mm-hmm. And if we can catch it within, a couple days after, I'm doing a 3-day weekend this time. It's going to be fairly intense. And if we can catch me after that, I think you will notice, other than the haircut I'm planning to get, you will notice a contrast in my manner, in the way I try to explain things, in my presence. I think it'll be interesting to see if it comes across on camera.
So you brought up the before and after. Now you've tried it once before, as you pointed out. You've got a basic understanding of what you're expecting. What prompted you to go and try it one more time?
Like I said, I got a lot of information the first time, a perspective on life, understandings, insights that I've been applying and putting into place. And I don't know if the answers sometimes are as important as the questions. I have much better question systems. So I'm going back with fresh questions, having implemented and tried and put into practice a lot of the things I learned last time, and it's left me with some other questions. And, very slowly I'm figuring them out. I'm getting answers. Stuff's coming to me. But this will just supercharge the whole experience, set me more solidly in that footing of... It's kind of like looking at life from two perspectives. You got I'm a pile of minerals in a meat body, moving around in an earth and mineral world, doing earth and mineral stuff, burning calories. And then the other side is everything is a construct of your mentality, your beliefs, and how you look at the world. And what this meat and rock world is a mirror of your mental world. And when you can look at them both at the same time in stereo, you realize what you're doing in your brain that's affecting your world. Now you become much more powerful, able. You get results you want much more quickly. And I want more of that. And basically, so I'm going back to practice being in that other world, building that viewpoint, the mental viewpoint that I want to run beside my physical viewpoint better. Because I lurch, I stumble, I fall. This viewpoint keeps falling off. I've been trained in the cause and effect physical universe for 50 years now. And I think 3 more nights of practice in the mental, spiritual universe is in order.
There's been a lot of talk about ayahuasca, but there's also an active chemical that's part of it called, I believe, DMT. I'm not exactly sure what that stands for.
That's dimethyltryptophan. It's what the medical community, which has to find like a nuts and bolts physical answer to stuff, attributes the high to, the special mental state you go into on ayahuasca. And when you purify it out, when you turn it into DMT itself, and then you smoke it or inject it, I don't know, much more intense, much more brief, and it is not part of the natural tradition, the shamanic tradition, the medicinal seeking for answers, spiritual tradition. I'm not saying it isn't a powerful tool, but it would be more of a psychedelic, I think, than the ayahuasca experience is. If you look at London Real, I believe, has a good before and after from a person who's done ayahuasca and DMT, and they make a nice contrast on it if you're looking for more information. More intense, briefer, less answers, but definitely a very real, powerful mental, spiritual, psychedelic experience on DMT. Ayahuasca, I can't contrast the two specifically. I've never done DMT, but ayahuasca, you roll into it gently. You're very much still yourself, your own identity, and it's just you in a completely different mental landscape.
You brought up the entire aspect of the drug side, the chemical compound, versus the cultural aspects of there. When you really think about it, one's a journey, one's a trip. If you really cut it down to, if you just want that quick buzz or whatever, you'll take the trip. But you're looking at it more from a journey and the fact that it's a 3-day journey, and more importantly, it's almost a guided journey. Tell me a bit about that entire cultural aspect that wraps around the ayahuasca versus the quick trip that may be the DMT.
So ayahuasca itself is coming to us from the Aboriginal peoples of the Amazon basin primarily, although now it's spread pretty well throughout the tropics. And there are some medicine man shamanic traditions in a lot of the Aboriginal native peoples, whether it's licking toads or mescaline or peyote or whatever they have available. Journeys into the spirit world are a part of a lot of ancient civilizations. Whereas Western civilizations probably abuse drugs and substances, the ancient world didn't wind up with a bunch of addicts, and yet they used mind-altering substances as part of their exploration of themselves and their world around them, realizing that the two were one. This is part of that tradition. So the shaman actually partakes along with you. So yeah, it's like your surgeon doing anesthetic with you before the operation, but they're holding a vibration as a very practiced, mature, spiritual person. They're kind of a guide. They're physically, if you're reacting strongly to it, some people have a lot of toxins. There is a big physical element to ayahuasca. It actually purges toxins from your body. A lot of people use it strictly for healing, don't even go after the spiritual aspects, although it's impossible to separate them either with ayahuasca or with health. But the shaman is there to facilitate your physical reactions, but also as a spiritual guide to keep you grounded, to pull you back to yourself, to watch for people who are in distress, to guide you on your journey. Usually an experienced shaman will deal with groups, and so you're with a group of people and he's moving throughout. They also inject an element of either music or chanting or dancing or something rhythmic into the mix, which has a very spectacular effect when you're under the influence of when you're on that journey.
Once again, this is the before aspect of it. Going into this, your final thoughts leading up to this next journey.
Like I say, you go in with mixed feelings because it is going to be not exactly an ordeal, but it's going to be trying. It's going to take a lot out of you physically. It's going to take a lot out of you mentally. And you're going into a strange situation with strange people, and you're about to have a life-changing experience that you just have to trust a lot of people, which is foreign to so many of us now, where trust is all out the window and we're all looking for reasons to distrust each other. We'd rather call the police than talk to our neighbor about their dog. Like, that's the world we live in, and this is the opposite world. A lot of ayahuasca's message for us is about community of mankind, community with the animal kingdom, community association with the planet itself and the plants. It's kind of anti-Western culture. Spirituality, it's definitely anti-realism science, where, you know, if you can't stick it in a test tube and grind it up and measure it, it doesn't exist. It's very much exploring concepts that we don't live with every day. And I think by pulling those concepts into your life's going to get better.
Well, that is the before view. Stay tuned for the after view. Welcome to part 2, the after show, as it were. What we're going to do now is talk about the after part of the journey and welcome back Ron. Ron, you just spent a weekend doing ayahuasca. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the first time it was a one-day event. Stick our toe in the water, find out what all the hype was about, the talk, if it was just another flash in the pan, another bunch of promises with no substance. But after the first taste and the insights and the changes I saw in my life, I was prepared to do it again. And 3 times I was a little nervous about, because it is fairly hard on my stomach, generally speaking, and you don't get much sleep that night of the ceremony. And I was nervous about doing 3 nights in a row. But, you know, I'm 50 years old, a lot of water under the bridge. It's been looking a lot the same for a long time, and I'm ready to shake things up a little bit. According to the facilitator, he does not like to be called a shaman. That's fairly standard, right around 50. When you get into the latter stages of your midlife crisis, a lot of people start looking either for a good deal on a sports car or some real spiritual insight that has more meat than the garden variety that they sell to you in a lot of business-oriented spiritual type things. So anyway, signed up for the 3 days, showed up, beautiful location in the country, nice farm, wonderful circle of trees. The weather was absolutely perfect, could not have ordered anything better. Knew probably 50-60% of the people there from the circle that's into this and previous experiences, and the synchronicities, the meshings of time and weather and places and people we knew and opportunities was just like, you could have planned for months and months and months and perfected and called people and organized and not have had something that great spontaneously occur over 3 days.
So overall, you would have said, if I'm reading through the lines, it was almost a perfect weekend for this.
Beautiful weather. Every time it got a little bit warmer than you might like, a breeze sprung up. Every time it got a little cooler than you might like, it got calm. We had the supermoon in the middle of the last ceremony. The trees, the weather, the insects. I mean, it's all about your pineal gland. There's pine cones all over the ground, which are the representation of that. The cicadas are molting and coming out for their 3-week period. They come out every 7 years right then. You know, a powerful symbol of chrysalis all around us coming out. There's people there that are greenhousing, cross-sampling, growing the ayahuasca vines and different ancient varieties of mupacho, like tobacco-like plants that are used in the ceremony, bringing in live samples spontaneously just to show everybody. I mean, the synchronicities and the combination of personalities was, yeah, it was perfect. Perfect just means complete. For this ceremony, it was perfect.
One of the things we talked about before was coming to the next journey, if you will, with better questions. Did you bring better questions? Did those questions get answered?
Sort of. Turns out all the questions are really the same question anyway until you move on to the next question, which was not a direction I expected to go, honestly, and that's why it probably took me all 3 nights to finally get down to the question. So while it's all very interesting, it's very affirming that something other than, I have never done any other hard drugs of any sort other, I drink a little alcohol, and I have tried some marijuana. Neither of them compare at all. This doesn't just mess up your perception of reality. You literally go behind the curtain. You feel, you sense, and occasionally see symbols of the operation of how everything's getting put together, how choices are made, how you're affecting what you see and feel and hear, and what other people are doing. And it's very, very, very convincing. I mean, if your brain can make up that kind of connections and see those associations and play out those relationships when you're stoned, we should all hit ourselves in the head and we'll be geniuses. Because if your brain works that much better when it's working improperly, then we'd be all better off to be lobotomized, and when we'd solve the world's problems in a week, because literally it makes too much sense. The deeper you go in, the more disoriented you feel, the more everything is obvious. And when you come back out, while just like reading a really good book, you can summarize it, but you probably won't remember every detail in the book. Everybody can summarize it. Everybody comes away with real, both a change in just outlook and nature and how they understand things, but also actual factual things they can explain and theorize on and talk about. The look in their eyes, I mean, that's the best part afterwards, when everybody's back in this realm and like sitting up and talking to each other. You never saw a bunch of people with that look in their eyes. Maybe if somebody just gave birth to quintuplets and they all got up and formed a barbershop quartet right on the spot in the hospital, yeah, everyone would look like that. And that's the look in everyone's faces. They all are having that moment.
You mentioned earlier about the location and nature and whatnot. There's also the aspect of the people that are around you, and then there's the actual drug itself. How do those three things play in together? How much of it is a community versus a self?
It becomes obvious that all of them have a personality, and that those, just like people of like personalities that get along, have a good time when they're together. The location had a feel and an energy that was appropriate and suitable and perfect for what was going on. The people that assembled there, by and large, you can handle a little disruption, because honestly some people are a little further along and some people a little further behind. Everyone's close enough, there's no real disharmony, but definitely there's some are trailing and some are leading the way, but it's still a really good mix. So the people fit within the vibration, and the shaman is coming from an absolute place of love, and he's basically just sharing his own wonder. Again, he doesn't like to be called a shaman because he wasn't raised in Peru traditionally and trained in it. He's been 16 years studying under a shaman. He loves it. He has great wisdom and experience, and his passion to help other people and share it with as many as possible. But he does not consider himself a shaman. But his nature, he facilitated and guided and conducted things brilliantly, expertly. A lot of things happened there that if he had not been up to it, would have been alarming and would have made you think, should this be going on? Is this safe? But his level of expertise and professionalism and love in handling it made you think, that was no problem at all. This guy knows what he's doing. I feel safe here. So every situation was very well handled and added to the experience and didn't take away from it.
For someone that's never gone through it, kind of walk me through some of the fundamentals of that process. Clearly, we talked about how important it is for the facilitator to be there to make sure everybody's safe, and it's like this is a supervised event. I think that's something that is very important to point out. Once the process starts, that supervision is there, but maybe walk me through the overall journey, if you will, from the beginning to the end.
The very fact that there's the element of physical discomfort tends to discourage people who are just looking for a trip, some sort of drug high. And that's intended. I think that's built into it because you will never recreationally, lightheartedly do this. I mean, it's a bit of a trial to go through it. And you feel like you've had the hero's journey. You've had the preparation time where you clean up your diet. It's a spiritual journey. There's a spiritual, personal aspect to it that is not there with dropping acid or doing LSD or something, even DMT. There's a commitment level. And so you get people there who are spiritual seekers or researchers of some sort. They're a fairly serious bunch. So there's that aspect of it that self-limits. That's a big part of it. So the facilitator is also a very spiritual person. A shaman is also a priest. The people have a certain personality, the place has a certain personality, and I'm going to say that the ayahuasca, when you're in there, you meet an actual personality, a caring, loving, but no nonsense, like not to be fooled with, powerful personality that makes decisions about what you actually need. And that's why every single time you drink it, it's different. It's similar, but different. Sometimes vastly different, sometimes a little bit different, but it's not like take this and this will happen, take this and you can go back and repeat that. You can never repeat it. 3 nights in a row, 3 completely different experiences, different lengths of time, different points when it kicked in, different points when it let go, and everyone in the circle was having different points, and some of them could just drink once, some of them had to drink twice, and that's also why the shaman's there. He comes around after an hour, interacts with you, looks in your eyes, and assesses the effect. If you need more, he gives you more. If you only need a little more, you'll just instantly purge, throw up what you didn't need. It's a self-limiting thing. It's very, very hard to abuse ayahuasca. You got to be some particular type of masochist to do that to yourself. And yet, what you come out of it with the end is so profound, you consider the discomfort as small trade for the gain that you got.
You said you went through 3 different journeys on this one, and obviously the questions that came out of the first one kind of led into the next one and so forth. Maybe walk me through the overall weekend from, what you kind of experienced.
Basically, I've got the impression that this reality is kind of a limited extension of the great grand, there's no real line between us and what some people might call heaven or higher realms, or where the stuff's coming on, the patterns that make atoms stick together and then form together into crystals and then form molecules that form chains and life cells in your DNA, and how all that organizes itself more and more and more complex. Nothing gets more complex by accident and then duplicates it over and over again and then goes up in complexity on scale. That's not how entropy works, which even though they try to throw that word at us. So there is a designing and organizing energy behind the universe, and we don't really see it here. It doesn't make any sense to us, or we wouldn't be falling back on entropy. So that level is not really separate. It's just beyond our normal comprehension. We don't see it. We don't comprehend, see, envision, interact with that level. Ayahuasca lets you start to comprehend and see and experience that level. And it's profound. So, I think I forgot exactly the question. You wanted me to... Oh, the experience. So, I got that part. I kind of got that the very first time, a glimpse into that. And I wanted to understand it more. So, I went back in, and right away, it's like as soon as I got a nice light show the first time again. The spinning wheels, the Aztec snakes, going into the complex patterns, the sounds, the music. I remembered, I remember this. This is where I was. This is the same thing. And I kind of know where that goes. I remembered it last time. So I backed up just out of that a bit. And I just my point is now that I know that this is a basic level of everything. This is where you come to pretend you're meat. This is where you come to have a story, the hero's journey, where there's something you want to accomplish and you get to choose your motive. Do you want to do it for love? Do you want to do it for duty? Do you want to do it for money? Do you want to be right? Do you want to be researched? Do you want to explore? Do you want to be brave? Do you want to be You get to pick a story. But after you see through the story, it doesn't motivate you anymore. If you're not in love with the character, or if you already know how it ends, you don't want to play the game again. It's like if you played a video game through and it's one of those where every move is every move and you get to the end and it's done, 2 or 3 times that game is done. So then you go looking for more levels, quite literally.
So one of the things that you pointed out was that you were familiar with the base point, if you will. Once you ingested it, certain things started kicking in and whatnot, and it became familiar to you. At that point in time, you decided what kind of journey or game that you wanted to play out. Walk me through that a bit.
Basically, you can see that this reality here, many people get really emotionally involved with it and really passionate, and really they're willing to kill for their beliefs, whether those beliefs revolve around family and loyalty or duty to a cause or an ideology or religion, or for money and fame, or for personal aggrandizement or something. Pick your motive. If you can get passionate about it, you won't look for anything else outside. You'll think you have your motive and you'll get into this reality and play it. But once you start seeing through it, and you can project to the end, or you've been around the loop enough times that you're realizing that, owning a house is kind of like the house owns you. Being the master winds up you're actually the servant. If you want to keep your position, being a servant actually gives you certain powers. In some way you're the master. Once you've played the game out enough ways, and then you can add all the elements together. There's love and family with duty and religion and money all worked into one plot. Once you're through that, what do? And that's kind of where I was at as my 50s here, midlife crisis in final stages, looking for a new story to get involved with. And from that perspective, I can look at the stories and look at the motives. And I'm honestly, whatever one grabs my attention, whatever one says, that I could give the next few years of my life to, I would have been good with that. I would have come out and said, I found what I want to play with, because it's pretty obvious it is a game, but that doesn't matter. You'll play a video game knowing it's only a game, because if it's got good lights and sound and color and it knows how to give you that emotional response you're looking for, it's a great game. This is a way better game than that. You can actually forget that it's not the reality of the universe and kill for it and be upset about it and be exultant about it, unless you're you see through it, and then you can't get the emotional response. So I'm looking for the new trigger that's going to say, this is my plot, this is the hero's journey I want to go on. First night, reacquainted, convinced myself, yes, this is real, it's solid, you're in here, it's convincing. I believe that this perception of how reality is working is an accurate perception. That was basically the first night. So the second night, okay, now I'm really going to kick it up. I'm going to go in here and look around and find some answers. It turns out it was in the afternoon, which was quite different doing it in the daytime with the light instead of the darkness. But basically, I started putting all of the different different plots together, the different motives. I'm watching it work out in real time. You can calculate there and feel your way through problems and situations and outcomes there just in a blink of an eye. You're the most intuitive, creative, powerful overseer. You're like the super director of the universe, or of this universe at least. And you're trying to come up with the screenplay that'll suck you into it and make you want to be the lead actor. And I couldn't find one. Everything comes back in a loop. And I actually, so at that point you could be disappointed, it's all pointless, or you could be mad, or you could just kind of find it wryly funny and amusing. And that's what I do. I'm a joker kind of guy. So I just sat there for 4 or 5 hours with an absolute grin on my face, running this thing forward and backward through the loop over and over. And the funny thing is, you can't decide. You can't pick one, because you can see how they're all going to go, and so you have no real motive There's always a moral agenda. There's always some blind eye you got to turn to get involved in it.
We've talked about the hero's journey and how, to a certain degree, once you start the journey, you have a certain degree of control as to what part of the game, if you will, that you want to play. How do you want the story to play out? Once the effects kick in and you know you're in that space, what happens?
Essentially, that you're like a super director for your character in the universe. You can pick what's going to motivate you, your morals, your aptitude. Like, you can basically tune your story. You're choosing and writing the screenplay for your life. And it's not that complicated, because you can continue to do that in real time outside of ayahuasca. You do it anyway. But from in there, you can see it so clearly. And as soon as you hit something that lights up for you and you get jazzed up about it and you're ready to get up off the chair and go live that life, for now you're done. But once you've been around that loop a bunch of times, and honestly, I think we're at the point in history where we've been around this loop a lot of times, and a lot of us are, my midlife crisis is basically a symbol for the state of mankind, the planet right now. We're tired of the motives of the choices we're making, and we want a new set. But when you know it's only a game, and you can see, you're getting wise enough to see through yourself and not buy into your own character, it gets shallow. And you can't choose. Nothing leaps at you. You don't want to choose anything. Literally, the shaman got up and said, "That's it, we're ending the ceremony, that's blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, no, I haven't decided yet. So, from my perspective in there, I could back it up and not end the ceremony and keep trying to decide, running new scenarios, running a new loop. And I got this big grin on my face, because rather than getting upset or disappointed or frustrated, I find it hilarious. The paradoxes, everything is such a paradox from that perspective. Everything is the same thing flipped the other way. And then you can turn it around and run it backwards and flip it the other way. And it's like underwear, inside, outside, frontward, and backward. But I'm just laughing. I'm just sitting there with this big grin on my face all day, and literally about 20 times I backed up the tape and kept trying to consider it. So finally it's dark. We started at 3 in the afternoon, and I don't know what time it was. The moon's in the sky. It's pitch black. I can't decide. It's the old Rush song. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. So it doesn't solve the problem either. I'm still stuck in there by not deciding. That's just another loop that runs both ways. And so anyway, I get up out of the chair and I just go in the kitchen. Just because I haven't decided. Everything's still fuzzy. I'm still under the influence, and I know I still haven't really left. So I'm really detached from what I'm doing. And I'm being a bit of a jerk. I'd like to think I'm being funny, but no one else was getting it because I was probably stoned. But I go in the house and I'm just like, anything goes in conversation. I'm just like exploring options, twisting it back on them. I can see all the paradoxes still from where I am. I'm still high enough up that I can see the whole story, the classic storyline dilemma, hero's journey for every subject that comes up, and the flip side of it, and where it goes, and I just throw it back into the conversation. And it's just like, some people get it and will play a couple times and then they get tired, and some people just don't get it at all. And it's like people will switch their personalities completely to, I'm playing the master role and they're playing the leading lady, leading man. If I suddenly switch the philosophy to the paradoxical 180, they continue the conversation in that vein as if it didn't completely contradict the sentence they said just before, and they don't even know it because they're playing off me. When you're in ayahuasca, you know that everyone's playing off your lead. They all cooperate. So I'm doing this till almost midnight in the house, till finally somehow I stumbled off to the tent and just went to sleep. Totally unresolved. Like, what is the thing that you do to decide? So I talked about it with the facilitator the next day, a very wise fellow. And he assured me that there was another layer to get to beyond that, it's not futile in the end. The game goes on. There is another level, and encouraged me to go looking for it.
So you mentioned that you had an unresolved second journey, and that kind of led you into the third journey with a different level that you were trying to find. Talk to me a bit about that.
It was funny, there's a few new people that showed up every day. And I realized this space, this sacred space, was almost like the casting room for the rest of my life. There were potential players entering and leaving that I could, they represent certain types of scenarios and choices to me. And by looking at them across the field when we're under the influence, it's like they're representing certain concepts. So I couldn't pick, there was nothing there on the second day that was working for me. And I reached the conclusion when I couldn't decide at all, if I had to pick anything myself, if I was forced to, about the only thing I would be able to pick was to go just all love. Just go all John Lennon and Yoko on the thing. And just, because you couldn't come up with a really good, logical, watertight motive, just love, love, love solves a lot of things, brings a lot of peace, and just fun and joy and lightheartedness and stuff. So, I literally was thinking, I'll bet tomorrow there's a John Lennon here. So the last car in the next day, we're supposed to get going at 3 o'clock. The last car in the driveway, late, doors open to come out, is this guy from Dublin with the long, wavy, light brown hair and the big round glasses on, and her name was Onu, my man, and he's just the spitting image of John Lennon. And she didn't have the same build, but the same kind of representation. And I'm just like, it's just so obvious the setup here, right? So anyway, we get into the ceremony. I get back into the loop. I knew I was gonna, because that's, the first stage of it. And I know I can't resolve it. So I'm like, how do I go from here? And the shaman was kind of hinting to me that you really got to surrender. So how do you... Putting anything outside of yourself, putting God outside of yourself is basically religion. And I'm not too keen on religion. I don't believe God is so much outside of us as just the bigger part of us that's playing this out with us. So it's kind of at a loss. Well, one of the fellows that came back that night from before, one of my friends, had brought 2 turtles with him. Because he had brought a turtle the first time and he had a really good night, so he'd found another one, so he brought 2 turtles with him. And he put them up front by the altar. And the shaman, the facilitator, had been talking about body energy. How when he wants inspiration and he wants to get that certain feeling and be connected, he'll actually act out like that classical paintings you see of all the prophets and all the holy men being in awe of God. And when he acts that out, his energy goes there. And I started telling him about the pencil in the teeth thing, and how blind people do the victory even though they've never seen it, and how there is energy in positions. So then I'm sitting there like wondering, how do I do this? Because I'm trying to run my archetypes through of the God of the Christians, the judgmental old man that likes to get in wars in the sky, and the Hindu and Christian gods, and the Muslim god, and nothing feels that good to me. And then all of a sudden the pieces click. The turtles, I look across the room, and the one lady is under her sleeping bag with just her head sticking out towards me. And I got it. So I just took the position of submission. I got down on my hands, and I had a catch in my throat from swallowing the ayahuasca that would not go away. I couldn't lean back because it scratched like crazy. I had to lean ahead, and my stomach's upset. But when I took that position, instantly I could concentrate because it made my stomach feel okay and soothed my throat. So I was being pushed into that position anyway. The turtles were a sign. The lady across the way was a sign. The day before there was a turtle ashtray there, but that wasn't enough. I didn't get it. And the day before that, so the first day Raj had brought a turtle for some reason, and I didn't really pick up on it. The next day there's also a turtle ashtray there. I didn't pick up on it. So the next day Raj brings 2 turtles. And the lady across the way acts out the turtle pose. And I got it. So I turn around, I do the submissive thing. I'm all distracted by what's going around. The flash of insight of Muslim comes into mind. So I turn to the east, go down, and I don't know. I really don't know. What is it? I totally surrender to whatever is from here. Whatever's the next level, please show me, I'll go along. I'll let you lead. I can't choose. And already I was kind of in the mood because I realized I was getting all the little signs and pointers, all these hints, it's already the beginning of the game. And that's basically the game, is that if you stop thinking you have to drive with your own brain, that you have to, and I'm overly analytical and I get flack for it from both the facilitator and some of the other people there. I'm always trying to make sense of everything, fit the pieces together, and go to the intellect. And they're encouraging me just to feel more. But I like the intellect. There's nothing wrong with it. They just don't choose it, and I do. So the intellect was the turtles and the signs and the memories and all the scriptures from the Bible that came flashing back and the religious references that applied, and I'm getting submit. And I get it. For the first time in my life, I actually saw God in the setting. There's me, there's the world, there's all the symbols and the other people, and I could just feel God's place in it. I could feel the whole thing. I mean, it was as real as my first revelation, the first drink, that this is all a sub-dimension of something higher, and we're just a little limited here to play this game and pretend that we're limited and pretend things can go wrong and pretend that people can hurt us so we can have a good story. And I felt it and I got it. Well, this time I actually felt and got. Call it God, just call it the overseer, call it the source. Whatever's actually creating all these scenarios and playing the game, I got it. And I know that you can pick. Which God do you want? You want God to be like Thor? You want God to be like the Greeks? You want God to be like the Egyptians? Which set of rules do you want to play with? And I basically went with the law of attraction, kind of source, a little more buddy, work with you kind of God. That the fall from grace, Adam and Eve, the snake, this is the DNA. When you choose you're going to decide for yourself and drive with your own brain, you can. Go for it. And you're going to have a lot of troubles, and you're going to make dilemmas, and you're going to bump along, and that's basically being kicked out of the garden. But if you're willing to turn around and submit again and say, okay, I have no more ideas, it's like letting your wife tell you where to drive, kind of. Off you go. That's another game. That's the next level. You don't know anymore. You got no more ideas. But you know what? The guy that's doing the whole scene, your greater self, he's got a bunch of ideas that you've never thought of. And if you're just willing to look for the clues, he'll start playing you Dirk Gently, everything's connected. Do you see the reference? He'll play the game. I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Would it be a fair statement that you were maybe trying too hard prior to that?
I was trying to do it all with my brain, which is totally legitimate. And the kind of stubborn person that I am, I would not be satisfied until I demonstrated to myself that I could not think of anything else I wanted to do with my own lead and initiative. And 3 trips on journeys on Ayahuasca, where I'm running all the gears and I can see the whole over plan and feel viscerally the plots and how they work and intuitively sense the twists and turns and where they're going to come back to and see the paradoxes. From that perspective, it took me 3 long sessions of spinning that to finally realize that I had no more ideas. I was done with my ideas. They had all played out. And then I had to find, basically, a partner. I had to assign a new director. Some people, that would be the moment when they found Christ, and it's so real to them, and now they've given their life in service to that. That's their God. They've chosen their way. It is essentially the same thing. Or whether someone decides, screw all that, they're going to be a pagan and drink on certain Hallows Eves and Hail Odin and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek worship, or very sincere, or they're going to be a Wiccan and just worship nature directly as you can choose. And every truth is valid because of that. Because God's not so hung up that he really cares how you want to typecast God in your story. You can actually assign God a personality and he'll play that role if you want. Okay, what is a vengeful, spiteful old Norse god that recommends you kill all your enemies look like, and what would it do, and what would you do? And from their perspective, There's no right or wrong to it. It's, you know, do you go to the movies and get outraged because the hero believes in premarital sex? You probably let that one go, even if you're a good Christian. Well, from his standpoint, this is your movie. And he'll help you out, and he'll direct, and he'll play his part, and he'll bring the characters on and off stage, and the scenes, and the cast, and throw the lightning. He won't judge. So pick what you want.
So let me ask the question. How do you pick?
You pick however you want until you can't pick anymore, and then you basically pick a new director, and you let that director pick. And you can set the rules of the game. There's this few archetypes of the rules of the game, so you don't have, like, so you can agree. I mean, it would kind of kill the illusion if you kept going, cut, and you actually like talk to the guy and figured out, okay, next I'm going to do this and then that, and then you'd really have to be acting. But when you can say, I'm going to believe in the God of, you know, the Romans and what they believed in with the Greek tied in and the Delphi thing, and I'm going to think that's all real because it really strikes a chord with me and I feel I found the light, and you just act out the God in that, okay? And on you go into the story with total conviction. That's basically where I'm at. So I'm going with sort of a law of attraction, source energy, what you put out is what you get back scenario, because it just sounds friendlier and a little more enlightened to me. But some people, that would be the moment they found Christ. Some people, that would be the moment when they turned their back on everything and became a Wiccan, pagan, what have you. Have it your way. That's how you can choose to let somebody else choose. And that is surrendering yourself to a higher power, however you want to couch it, and living a life of, I don't know, devotion or cooperation, or depending which model you choose. So that's what I got out of the weekend. That, some upset stomach, some good diet habits, a lot of good friends. I mean, the look on people's faces at coming out of one of those sessions is just unlike anything you've ever seen. Once you've sat around throwing up in buckets together and talking about your revelations, those people are your friends. I mean, anybody will hug anybody. You go inside, you jump on the couch, 3 other people that you just met, you know, jump in your lap, and you sit around, did you, and what did you see, and what did you, and like it's like the best camp night of your entire life every night. And if your stomach could take it, you might keep doing it every night, but honestly, it's exhausting.
Well, and you look exhausted right now, so let me ask you one last question. What's next?
Practice. You come back to the familiar settings, kind of tired out, with a bunch of new information, and you just start slipping right away back into the routine, and like, stop. I realize intellectually that you never really leave ayahuasca. Ayahuasca doesn't take you somewhere else. It just lets you see where you are. What's next is you drive home, you come back to the same surroundings and situation with some extra chores to do because you're just unpacking all your camping gear, and you're tired, and you start instantly to slip back into your routine. And that's not what you want to do, because you actually need to practice this new outlook on life. I mean, it hit you pretty hard, but it hit you one night, or in this case 3 nights. But the big payoff was the 3rd night. And it would be easy to just on autopilot with whatever soaked in and got in there to just carry on and see what happens. But I think the real progress is going to be in consciously reminding yourself of that epiphany and that new mindset you had coming out the end, and hold on to it, and then cautiously take a step, and then run back and see, am I doing it the old pattern, or have I changed? What does it mean to live life from this perspective? And to stop thinking I have to decide everything and I have to figure out everything, to always be acknowledging the new director. Basically, what's it like to stop directing the movie and start looking for your cues, and not to forget that you don't have artistic license necessary. I mean, I can just run on and do whatever I want whenever I want, but I know where that's going to go. And so if I don't like it anymore and I want something I like better, and I've made a deal with a new director, I got to remember to not do what comes naturally to me so much as to keep looking to the director for what's next. And I think I kind of have the game going on because I like to use my intellect. The director isn't just going to tell me. I got to find the clues. It's an Easter egg hunt. It's an eternal Easter egg hunt with a new director, that's next. That's what I'm trying. If that doesn't work, I have to tweak it and try it. If I can meditate my way into new understandings and ahas and getting it, I will. If I can't and I get frustrated again, I'll go looking for another shaman and another chance to go back in there with a better question.
Final thoughts?
I won't say it's for everybody. A lot of people are quite happy playing the game. A lot of people, unless you already realize that all your problems are yourself, don't go run into ayahuasca thinking that it's going to make you right or prove to your enemies that they're idiots or your family that they're idiots, or, it's not a Band-Aid fix to anything. If you haven't already reached the conclusion that you are your own problem and that fixing you, expanding you, giving new data, insights, opportunities to you is going to expand the possibilities and provide new solutions. If you still think somebody else is going to do it for you, don't go do ayahuasca. But when you've reached the point where you've got a spiritual inkling that there is somebody else who will help you with you, and then in fact it might even be you, yeah, by all means, I think it can't hurt you. No one's ever overdosed on ayahuasca. No one's ever died from ayahuasca. A trusted shaman, ask around, good reputation, a little bit of tolerance for an upset stomach, and spiritual hunger, and I would recommend ayahuasca to you.